One of my favorite moments in the Gospels is when Jesus is walking with his friends and he asks them about what the people say about him. What do they think about him and his message? But then ultimately, after hearing that, he turns his attention directly to his friends. Who do you say I am? What about you? And I think this is a really special moment that we get to look into as readers. A really touching moment where Jesus, I think, actually protects the space for his disciples to tell him what they think of him. And I think there's a lot more going on there than just the declaration that Jesus is the Messiah. I think there's a real self-disclosure that's happening as Jesus saves that space, protects that space for his friends to speak back to him. "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" And Peter answered, "You are the Messiah." So Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about this. And one of the things you have to understand here is that this is only the second appearance of the word Messiah anywhere in the Gospel of Mark. And do you remember the first? It's been a while. It was all the way back in the fall, in the first week of the first part of this series, when we read the first verse of this first gospel. The beginning of the good news about Jesus the Messiah, the Son of God, Mark 1, verse 1. See, in all of Mark, in everything we have read, across all of the sermons and stories that took us through part 1 and now closing in on the end of part 2, Messiah has never come up since. And that is by design. There's been hints, of course, right? A lot of them along the way, and every time Jesus has tamped them down and held them off and waited until now. But I think this is one of the most beautiful touches that Mark weaves into his telling of the Jesus story. That Jesus saves space for his friends to tell their story with him. Because that's what this is about, right? I mean, of course Jesus is the Messiah. Mark told us in verse 1. For 8 chapters now, he's been walking around healing people and excising demons. Mark has hinted at references to Hebrew scriptures and divine theophanies. Both crowds and critics all know exactly where the story is going. But thus far, no one has put breath behind the hope they hold. And that's because Jesus has been protecting this moment for his friends because he knows it's going to take them a while to get there. They just don't understand yet. Except, I think about Peter here, right? I mean, he's been with Jesus for a while now. He's been following around, listening to him teach. He's seen things he can't explain up close. He even left his home and his job, his family to follow Jesus. Whatever you imagine about Peter and all of his failings, which are many, he is a disciple in the best sense. And because of that, I'm convinced that this moment here on the road with Jesus is not even close to the first time Peter has thought this thought. Right? Like, I imagine Peter holding these words in his mouth, biting his tongue around fires and meals. I bet he had these words on the tip of his tongue 100 times before, but never found the courage to say them until now, here. And why? Well, I want to suggest it's because he hasn't been asked. You see, sometimes the truth is, for all of us, we know the answer, right? And we know what needs to be said. Sometimes we know exactly what it is that we hope for, but what we're waiting for is for someone to care about what we have to say. And I think that's what Jesus has been protecting all the way along for his friends here. He doesn't say it for himself. He doesn't tell them. He doesn't let demons steal the moment. He asks what they think. And he lets Peter name the hope that this ragtag group of outcasts and fishermen have been holding in their hearts from the first moment they saw Jesus. That's what he's been saving all this time. The difference between being told
and that long, slow process of coming to understand and name that story for yourself. See, here's the thing. Faith isn't just about having the right answers. It's about the process of finding our way to them. And sometimes what Jesus knows is that maybe we don't understand yet. But all that really means is that the story isn't over yet. And so bit by bit, cloudy image by blurred vision, unsure foot by timid step, faith is about stumbling our way toward God. And trusting that when the time is right, God will want to hear your story. Because divine welcome goes all the way down. Please hear this. Jesus isn't in a rush to get you to the end. Jesus is interested in giving you all the space that you need so that you can slowly, steadily, at your own pace, come to your own realization of all the divine love that surrounds you even now. Because that realization is so much more powerful than just being told.
Hey, thanks for watching through. If you are intrigued by the work that we're doing here at Commons, then by all means, give us a like, throw a comment down below, and subscribe here so you can stay up to date on all of the content that we're posting here on YouTube. We'd also love to invite you to join our Discord. You can do that in the link down below. There's all kinds of conversations that we're inviting in and through the community as we do our best to follow Jesus together. Of course, you can find more about Commons at commons.church and following @Commons Church on all the socials. Thanks for being here.